go. Yeah, y'all sitting in my way, better back up. About to have a bad day, call it bad luck.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be doing part 5 in my hip shifting series. Now, I haven't really been that consistent with it because I wasn't sure if people would take to it. However, one of my videos has actually gotten well over 1,500 views, so it's become very apparent to me that more people deal with this issue than I realized. The technical term for what I deal with and many others deal with is a lateral pelvic tilt. Now, I've never had it diagnosed because I've seen 3 PTs and a chiro, and none of them were able to actually help me long term. They treated the symptom, what I was dealing with. They didn't help me figure out what caused it, so I don't deal with it any longer. And I'm hoping to provide something like that for you guys today. Basically, a lateral pelvic tilt is just when your pelvis is a bit uneven. Now, my right hip sits higher than my left. Last week, I decided to take a video, and my hips don't shift nearly as bad. So I wanted to share it with you guys. What causes a lateral pelvic tilt? Now, I'm sure you'll get 100 different answers from 100 different professionals. In my personal opinion, it's just a breakdown in the kinetic chain, which causes your hips to load unevenly. This could be because of muscular imbalances within your hip muscles. Some of the big ones that I'll name are your quadratus lumborum, which is responsible for lateral flexion and stability. It attaches to your lumbar vertebrae and then goes down into your pelvis, along with the iliopsoas, which is a very powerful hip flexor and becomes very stiff and can become very weakened when we sit for prolonged periods of time and we don't train them adequately. The other 2 muscles are a strong and stable core and strong and stable hips, or your glute muscles. Again, that's just my personal opinion. My opinion on this has changed drastically over the last year, just because I've learned so much more about the human anatomy and things like fascia. So that's typically what you'll hear from a professional, is that your hips are uneven because of a muscular imbalance. Maybe it's because of scoliosis. Maybe your legs are different lengths or something to that effect. But there's 2 things that people don't tell you when it comes to injuries or muscular imbalances or just movement breakdowns like this. Because what you'll probably find if you pay very close attention to your hips and you cultivate a mind-muscle connection with the muscles within the hips, is you'll probably notice that you're loading your hips unevenly. Or at least I know I have. And this brings me to my first point about what you don't typically hear from professionals when it comes to issues like this, is you probably lack neuromuscular control, meaning you don't have a mind-to-muscle connection with the muscles of the hips to load them adequately. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the hips. It could be something within your feet or your calves or your hamstrings. Something could be a little shortened and weak. It could just be the fascial system on the backside of your body as a whole. Whatever the case may be, you're lacking neuromuscular connection and coordination with the right muscles to fire in the right sequence so that your body can move optimally. So if you lack coordination like I do in your left glute muscle, your right one's going to compensate. So when I get under a barbell and I'm doing some squats, when I get lower and lower, my hips tend to shift because the coordination of my left hip muscles or my glutes are a bit off in comparison to my right side. The other thing is, and this may sound strange to some people, but the other thing is emotional trauma. The body is incredible. And when we don't deal with our emotional shit, the body will store it. And it oftentimes stores it in the hips and in the pelvic floor musculature. I've tried a bunch of different things. A lot of things have helped alleviate the situation in the moment. Meaning, when I would do a banded lateral hip mobility drill, it would feel good in that moment, but then all it would take is me to sit down for 30 minutes and my hips are back to being all wonky. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do about this? Now, with that being said, the past year of my life has been weird. Meaning, I've had to sit down and face a lot of my own mental demons. And in that process, along with, of course, taking care of myself, eating the right foods, getting sleep, drinking water, doing those things, my body has naturally been healing itself. And you'll see that in the clips I'm going to show you guys with where I'm at now with my hip shift. The first video is going to be, I first woke up that morning, and you'll notice if you've watched the videos before that my hips don't shift nearly as bad. It's probably half of what it used to be. And this is first thing in the morning. I haven't done anything yet. The next video is going to be me after I train that day. Now, whenever I do training, because my core temperature is up, my core is very active, it can actually help stabilize the pelvis so I don't see the same hip shifting issues. So as you see, it's gotten tremendously better. But it hasn't just been me staying consistent with my mobility. It hasn't been me trying to strengthen the weakened muscles. It hasn't been me sitting less and doing more mobility throughout my day. It's been a collective of that and dealing with my own mental and emotional demons. Look, I'll be the first one to admit it. I've cried more in the last year than I have in my entire life. But don't downplay the power of storing emotional tension within your body. This is just anecdotal, but I think it's a very real and valid possibility for anybody, especially anybody who's dealing with a lateral pelvic tilt. So that's a lot of where I'm at with this. So every video I've watched on YouTube in regards to this, everything I've read about it, is just telling you to stretch this, strengthen that, do this, do that. And it's like they don't ever talk about neuromuscular control and coordination. They rarely ever talk about emotional tension and trauma that may be stored within the body. The human body is the single greatest tool we're given on this planet, but we just have to listen to it. It's giving us signs daily. And there's one more point I would like to hit on when it comes to this. Think about how long it's taking you to get to where you're at with your hips. For me, I can recall about 5 years ago was the first time I really felt agonizing back pain from whatever was happening within my hips. It wasn't until I first hurt my shoulder that I realized I had other issues in other places. Which brings me to my next point. How do we prevent this from getting worse or even starting in the first place if you find a way to correct it? You gotta figure out how it even began. I had some shoulder issues. That was one of the first real injuries I dealt with from my lifting career. So I don't know if the breakdown of my kinetic chain started here or it could have even started at my foot. What I've noticed is my right foot will over supinate, meaning it'll over externally rotate trying to load the hips, and my left foot will pronate slightly, will pull my knees in a little bit and not allow my hips to load adequately. So like I said, I don't know exactly which one started there, but figure out where the movement breakdown is in your kinetic chain, because that will lead you to what's starting it in the first place, which will then allow you to treat it in the way that works best for you so that we don't have to keep going down this rabbit hole. I mean, how many people, and please drop a comment down below and let me know, how many other people have read extensively about this, who have watched numerous videos. Biggest thing I'm working on these days is a lot of foot grounding. I rarely wear shoes when I train anymore, and when I wear shoes for other things, I wear minimalist shoes, flat sole shoes, so I can feel my feet connect with the ground, so I can draw the energy from the ground so that I can transfer it through my body. I do this, I think about the tripod foot. So picture my hand as a foot right now. Picture this is the big toe and this is the little toe. You want to think about your foot as a tripod. So you want to drive into the base of your big toe, your little toe, and the base of your heel, wherever that actually is, because I'm using my hand. And you really need to externally rotate at the feet, at the hips, so you can load your hips adequately. And that's one of the things I'm really focusing on now. So I take a lacrosse ball whenever I can, and I just mash up the soft tissue within my foot arch, trying to restore normal function and gliding surfaces. Drink your water. The other thing I'm still doing is a lot of hip mobility and hip activation, meaning activating the lateral hip muscles that stabilize the hips, working on strengthening my adductors, honestly, the entire hip musculature, because it is a fine piece of art. One other thing that I've been working on endlessly that, again, a lot of experts or clinicians or whatever the case may be don't ever really talk about is breathing like a human. And I know how that may sound, but the truth is, guys, because of modern technology, because we sit so frequently, a lot of people shift or have shifted to mouth breathing. And this is just not what we are meant to do as human beings. We're supposed to take deep diaphragmatic breaths through our nose, fill our belly up with air, allow the diaphragm, which is a muscle, to work to its full capacity, and bring oxygen and nutrients to the body, especially to the brain, which again is important because we need that neuromuscular control with the muscles at the hips. So taking deep diaphragmatic breaths as much as I possibly can, working on breath work. I do breath work every single morning. I just posted a video, I'll put a card at the top here, of my morning mobility routine. It's very simple. It takes 10 to 15 minutes, and I start it every single morning with breathing exercises. These little things, I know they may sound silly, like, wait, I can't just do a hamstring stretch and my hips are gonna go back to normal. No, there's a lot more happening that your hips are sitting uneven. Now, if your legs are physically different lengths, that's a different ballgame. But if you're dealing with a hip imbalance, which is why your hips sit uneven, there's a lot more to it than just a superficial or intrinsic muscle that may be stiff. That muscle is stiff for a reason. So if you really want to fix your lateral pelvic tilt, it's not just going to be working on mobility constantly. It's going to be working on mobility. Dealing with emotional trauma. I'm so serious about that one. That one is one I wish people would take more seriously. Figuring out where your kinetic chain or your body is breaking down when it comes to movement. And working on breathing like a human through your nose, fill the belly up, use that diaphragm. It's a gorgeous muscle and it does so many things. I've heard people say that you can change your biochemistry in seconds just by breathing through your diaphragm. That is incredible to me. So guys, I hope you took something from this video. I wanted to make this video because I've learned so much about human anatomy by going down this rabbit hole all myself. I've learned just how important hip mobility is, but I've also learned just what the human body can do when faced with danger, or what we perceive as danger. Because the truth is, if you're storing emotional trauma, you may be living in the survival instinct or in the survival state of being, that fight or flight. So get out of your seat. Take those deep diaphragmatic breaths. It will calm your nervous system. Discover where your kinetic chain is breaking down. And the most important thing is be extremely patient. This took you how many years to get there? It's going to take you some time to... When I first showed this video, my hip shifting issue was very, very bad. Hips shifted like crazy. But as you saw from the clips earlier, my hips don't shift nearly as bad anymore. And it's just from the consistent effort I've put in over the course of the last 8 months. I can't wait to see where a year takes me. So guys, if you took anything from this video, please drop a like, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you want to see more of. If you want me to cover more hip mobility, more ankle mobility, I would love to. I've got more tricks up my sleeve. If you guys want to hear anything else, see anything else, please drop a comment down below. Reach out to me on other social media platforms. The links will be down below. And I'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, y'all sitting in my way, better back up. About to have a bad day, call it bad luck. I don't call this shit fake, call it back, bruh. Anybody getting in my way?